All right, we are finishing up our analysis of the Tragedy of Julius Caesar, Act 3, Scene 1, and we're picking up here on line 211. Antony had just shook hands with all the conspirators, and then he looked upon Caesar's body and kind of had an emotional reaction, saying that here he had fallen among hunters, the bravest heart of the world. And Cassius, after Antony gives a speech, interrupts, "Mark Antony." Antony responds, "Pardon me, Caius Cassius, the enemies of Caesar shall say this. Then in a friend it is cold modesty." In other words, right, people will look at this historically, that I shook hands with you and seemed to make nicey nice with you, and they would say that I basically had been a traitor to Caesar. So he says, because it's me, his friend, just admitting this is just being modest, right? It's being calm. Cassius responds, "I blame you not for praising Caesar so, but what compact or agreement do you mean to have with us, right? I know that you were loyal to Caesar, so I don't blame this reaction, but are you going to be with us or against us?" He wants to know. "Will you be pricked in number of our friends, marked or counted, or shall we on? Shall we go forward and count you out?" All right, so that's the idea here. Cassius wants to know where he stands because they're going to move forward here with trying to reorganize the government, and they need to know where Antony's at. Antony says, "Therefore I took your hands. That's why I shook your hands. I was going to be with you, but it was indeed swayed from the point by looking down on Caesar. I had a reaction looking at my dead friend. Friends am I with you all, and love you all, upon this hope that you shall give me reasons why and wherein Caesar was dangerous," right? I know you men, and so I would like reasons why you would do this. Now, Brutus says this interesting response here. "Or else this were a savage spectacle." Yeah, if we didn't have good reason, this would look bloodthirsty, right? "Our reasons are so full of good regard." In other words, we thought through this so carefully. We have such good reasons that were you Antony, the son of Caesar, you should be satisfied. In other words, our reasons are so good. If this was your dad and we killed him, you'd be like, well, I could see that. Pretty confident, right, in why he did this. Antony says, "That's all I seek, and am moreover suitor that I may produce his body or bring his body to the marketplace, and in the pulpit as becomes a friend, speak in the order of his funeral." So Antony's making this interesting request. I want to bring his body to the pulpit, to the common area where people speak, and I want to basically speak at his funeral. I want to say things about Caesar. Brutus says, "You shall, Mark Antony." He's agreeing to this. Cassius wants a word with Brutus off to the side in private. He says this, "You know not what you do. You do not consent that Antony speak in his funeral. Know you how much the people may be moved by that which he will utter?" In other words, you don't know what he's going to say. He's going to be up there speaking to the people. You don't know what kind of effect he's going to have on them. So don't do it. Brutus says, "By your pardon, I will myself into the pulpit first and show the reason of our Caesar's death." So Brutus is so convinced he's going to go up and tell people why they did it, that nothing that Antony says is going to make that seem like it was a bad thing, right? "What Antony shall speak, I will protest, I will declare that he speaks by leave and by permission." In other words, Antony's going to speak now that I've proven to you why Caesar had to die, and he has our permission to do that. "And have that we are contented, Caesar shall have all true rights and lawful ceremonies. It shall advantage more than do us wrong." So we're going to be confident that this was the right thing, and that Caesar, therefore, out of respect for him, he's going to get his funeral, right? That this is going to make us seem generous and noble versus treacherous and backstabbing, literally. Cassius says, "I know not what might fall." I don't know what's going to happen. I like it not. So he is not a fan of this. Brutus then says to Antony, "Mark Antony, here take you Caesar's body. You shall not in your funeral speech blame us, but speak all good you can devise of Caesar, and say you do it by our permission. Else shall you not have any hand at all about his funeral." So the idea here is he gives them three conditions to speak. One, you cannot blame us. You cannot say we were wrong. Two, you can say good about Caesar. He did this, he did that, but it was not our fault that he had to die, right? And then that you have our permission. So that's the three things that Antony is supposed to honor if he goes and speaks, or else he's not allowed. And then you shall speak in the same pulpit where I am going after my speech is ended. So the people will hear me, and then they can hear you, right? You can't go do it somewhere else. Antony says, be it so, I desire no more. Okay. Brutus says, prepare the body then and follow us. Exit all but Antony. So Antony's there alone with the corpse, and he starts talking now. He's not crazy, right? Because this is a play. This is a soliloquy, which means a character is speaking alone on stage, expressing his thoughts. So what he says here now is how he really feels. Here's what he says. Oh, pardon me, thou bleeding piece of earth. He's talking to Caesar's body. That I am meek and gentle with these butchers, right? He calls them like someone slaughtering a cow, right? They're butchers. So sorry that I have been kind to these men. You are the ruins of the noblest man that ever lived in the tide of times. In all of history, you are the noblest of all men, right? So he highly esteems Caesar and is begging his pardon or his forgiveness for treating these conspirators kindly. Woe means misery. Woe to the hand that shed this costly blood. So they're gonna suffer, right? Over thy wounds now do I prophesy. So he's gonna make a prophetic or a prediction over the wounds of Caesar. Then he gives this interesting personification to the wounds, which like dumb mouths do ope their ruby lips to beg the voice and utterance of my tongue. So these stab marks are like mouths that are asking him to do something about this murder. A curse shall light upon the limbs of men. In other words, people are going to be cursed for doing this. Domestic fury and fierce civil strife shall cumber or burden all the parts of Italy. So there's going to be basically civil war everywhere in Italy as a result of this, right? Blood and destruction shall be, now this is pretty disgusting and gruesome. Blood and destruction shall be so in use. It's going to be so normal to see blood and destruction, and dreadful objects are so familiar that mothers shall but smile when they behold their infants quartered with the hands of war. Being quartered, drawn and quartered, was when all your limbs were tied to like horses and they were sent running in different directions and you were pulled apart. So there's going to be so much bloodshed that babies could have that happen to them and the mothers would just smile. So this is this is intense, right? Super intense. All pity choked with custom of failed deeds. There will be no pity. Pity is going to be destroyed by so much gore and blood. And Caesar's spirit ranging for revenge, like going crazy like a beast, with Ate, which is this was a Greek goddess that was about just the reckless ambition of people, right? So Ate's by his side come hot from hell. So Caesar's ghost and this raging fierce goddess are going to be going around in total chaos. Shall in these confines, right, in the boundaries of revenge in the state, they will cry havoc, which means slaughter, destruction, chaos, right? And let slip or let loose the dogs of war, that this foul deed shall smell above the earth with carrion, meaning carrion is dead and rotting, men groaning for burial. So there's just going to be dead bodies everywhere, and there's going to be so many that they can't even bury them. So he's really mad. He's really wanting revenge. So this is really releasing how upset he is. So a servant comes in of Octavius Caesar, which is actually Caesar's nephew. Servant says he does serve Octavius Caesar. Antony says Caesar did right for him to come to Rome. That's why he's there. Caesar had asked him to come. Servant said, he did receive his letters and is coming, and bid me say to you by word of mouth. And then he sees Caesar's body. And Antony then takes over. He's just a servant, so he's not going to be expressing the emotion like Antony did, nor take away from the impact of the speech that Antony just gave. Thy heart is big. Get thee apart and weep. Passion I see is catching for mine eyes, seeing those beads of sorrow stand in thine began to water. I saw you upset and about to cry over Caesar's death. I'm going to cry too. Servant says he lies tonight within 7 leagues of Rome. So close by, it's about 20-something miles, is Octavius Caesar. And so he's waiting to hear from Antony. Antony says, post back with speed and tell him what it's chance. Tell him that Caesar is dead. Here is a mourning Rome, a dangerous Rome. In other words, Antony doesn't know what's going to happen. We're mourning Caesar's death. We don't know how it's going to all turn out. No Rome of safety for Octavius yet. You don't want him to come until we know what's going to happen. Hie hence and tell him so. Yet stay a while. Thou shalt not back till I have borne this course into the marketplace. There I shall try in my oration how the people take the cruel issue of these bloody men. I'm going to give a speech, and I'm going to see how I can work up the people and how they're going to react. And then you can tell Octavius. According to the which thou shalt discourse to young Octavius of the state of things. Lend me your hand. So shake. You're going to wait around while I go talk to the people, and we're going to see what happens, and then you're going to go tell Octavius what I want him to do. That's how this scene ends, and it prepares for the funeral speeches in the next scene, scene 2 of Act 3. So hopefully that was helpful. Any questions, comments down below? Thanks for taking the time to understand this play better.